Great. Well, welcome. I'm going to be sharing a little about the Awake in the Wild teacher training. And I'll cover some highline areas. And you can always find more information on the awakeinthewild.com website that has the teacher training tab. The same information, although in a slightly different form, is on my own website, markcoleman.org. And you can always ask Jen Petrus, who's the Awake in the Wild administrator. You can send her an email through it's just see so many different emails. Jen is Jen at awakeinthewild.com, I believe. You can also get it through my website, markcoleman.org.
Mark, can I ask you, is Jen's email, is it JENN or JEN?
JEN. And I'm just going to double check that as we're talking.
Thank you.
I can't, unfortunately. Yeah, Jen at awakeinthewild.com. So, well, thanks for taking the time for finding out about this training. It's a wonderful program. I've been teaching it now probably for 10 years. This will be the eighth time that I've offered the training. 6 of those have been in Europe, in America, one in Europe. And so this will be the eighth. And trained about 100, 120 people from the US and Canada and Europe. And it's my favorite thing of the year to do. I love this work. I love meditation and nature, and I love combining the two, and I love sharing my love and passion and experience over that I've gleaned over these past, been leading nature meditation retreats for 20 plus years. And they're very beautiful and rich and deep and nourishing and expansive. And so the last training I did, which was a couple of years ago in the US, Laurie Schwanbeck was co-teaching with me, and she'll be co-teaching with me this time. She's currently teaching a program right now, so she's not here, but she's a wonderful teacher, facilitator, guide, therapist, and been doing sensory awareness work as long as I have, starting in Canada. She's Canadian, and then here, and then teaching with me and Awake in the Wild work in different ways at Esalen and other retreats. And so the premise of the training is to support people twofold: deepening your practice and understanding of what it means to be mindful and aware in nature. And the second intention is to learn how to share and guide these practices to a wide variety of people. And so it's very experientially based. It's it's grounded in experience. And I believe, and I've been also running another teacher training for 15 years, the mindfulness teacher training through the Mindfulness Training Institute, which is another organization I run. And both of those trainings grounded in that you teach from experience. You teach from what you know, not from books, not from memory, not from an idea, but from grounded, rooted in your experience. And that's particularly true in nature, where nature being so alive and in such a alive, visceral, sensory, embodied experience, that you have to be meeting that with your own presence as you teach. So because of that, the training is very experiential. And some people sign up for the course without not being particularly interested in teaching, but just wanting to deepen their practice and also deepen their nature meditation practice in community. And because you'll join a group of, usually it's roughly around 20 people, different, quite a age range, usually from early 20s to 70s. And most of those people do go on to teach, but some it's really about their own practice. And the first retreat, which will happen next fall in Northern California, in the Point Reyes area, um, it's a deep dive into the practices from an experiential point of view. So we'll spend about 4 days in silent nature meditation practice. We're immersed in all the meditations that we will be learning and practice teaching on the training. But it allows everybody to arrive and get on the same page and to deepen in their practice, and really feel the meditations and the work from the inside. And then, of course, because it's in the context of a teacher training, I'm often giving comments from behind the curtain about what this practice is, why I might teach it, when I might teach it, what its uses are, and whatnot. But the orientation is being in experiential practice mode. And then we spend a couple of days at the end unpacking the retreat and the meditations and the flow and what happened. And that's the first retreat, in a beautiful land, as I say, near Point Reyes. And then the second retreat in January will be not that far. It's actually over the Sierra de Laguna Mountains, where I am in southern Baja, in a beautiful wilderness retreat center, and about an hour north of Cabo, but about as far removed from Cabo as you can imagine. It's it's a rustic, beautiful, lush desert landscape. We're back onto these 7,000-foot peaks, and there's lots of water and pools and small cascades and swimming holes and giant ficus trees. Very beautiful landscape. It's actually now a nature preserve, and some beautiful cottages that we stay in, and that second retreat, we begin the format that is the format for the rest of the training on the retreats, which is grounded in experience. So how a typical day would go, and then that second retreat is orienting you to foundational mindfulness practices as they are experienced in nature. And so what I mean by that is many of the meditations will be quite familiar to those of you who study mindfulness and insight meditation and Buddhist practice, mindfulness of breathing, mindfulness of body, mindfulness of standing, of walking, of lying down, and some other foundational practices. But because we're doing those meditations outside, they're very different. Mindful breathing, I call breathing with nature, is a very different experience when you're breathing in oxygen released from the forest and fragrance that's blowing in from the ocean, and tinged with the dawn moisture and the variability of temperature from the breeze, and it's a very alive, sensory embodied experience. And the same with walking indoors up and down in a corridor or a meditation room is very different than walking along a footpath where there's sand or gravel or sticks and moss and leaves, and it's again very a more live sensory experience. So the flow of the days go like this. I'll introduce a practice. In this case, it might be breathing with nature and all of that entails. I'll guide the practice, meditation, and then I'll organize you, or you'll self-organize into groups of 3, into triads, and then you'll practice teaching that meditation from your own experience as much as you can. And then you debrief that practice amongst yourselves, and then we come back as a group and we debrief the practice, the teaching of it, the learnings, the challenges, questions, and that could take up a good part of the morning. And And then in the afternoon might be followed by a mindfulness of standing or standing with trees or mindfulness of body as it's experienced in nature, again, which is very sensory, visceral, connected, changing. I'll introduce the practice, why I might teach it, the benefits, guide it. And then you'll get into groups of three, you'll practice teaching each other. And I always say on these webinars and on the training, and it's true, that you will learn as much from each other as you will learn from myself or Laurie or other guest teachers we might have. No one is, I'm an expert in meditation and nature meditation, but we are all our own experts in both our own experience and also in nature. And so what you bring to it in your own experience of meditation, and particularly of connection with nature, is unique. So your languaging and your style and form and how you teach will have a lot of variety in it from me and from Laurie. And so it's very rich in that you know, in a group of 20, you'll be learning from each other in a very rich way. And so that kind of is the flow of the day. Sometimes there's an inquiry. So I've trained in the diamond approach tradition, which uses inquiry as a spiritual inquiry. And so often there'll be, like, for example, in the afternoon teaching about mindfulness of body, I'll give an inquiry where we get into groups of 2 or 3 or 4. And there'll be an inquiry, for example, on embodiment. Like, and the question might be, tell me ways that you're embodied, or tell me ways that get in the way of you being embodied in a full sensory way. So the idea of those inquiries is taking you deeper into your own experience and practice. But mostly the flow of the days is me introducing a practice, teaching it, you guiding it, us discussing it. And we'll go through probably about 20 different practices in the course of the year. I'll also be sharing throughout those weeks different aspects of teaching in nature. It might be logistics, like, how do you scout? How do you find the right place? What about shade and gear and rain and bugs and people and noise and aversion and all of that. So there's a lot of sort of details that one needs to be mindful of. But that second retreat is really grounded in the foundational practices of mindfulness. The third retreat, which will happen in a beautiful woodlands that a friend of mine owns up in the Sierra foothills, we'll be exploring more sensory awareness practices and heart practices. So we'll be exploring practices of listening in nature, seeing in nature, sensory walks, heart practices, love, nature, gratitude. Similar format. I introduce a practice, I guide it, then you practice guiding, we have discussion, reflection, and then some inquiries, some other aspects related to nature teaching, but also about teaching in general, about preparation, about talks, or about group dynamics, dealing with questions, schedules, dealing with people, those people things, show up on your thing, so projection, transference, and all those interesting dynamics. And then the fourth retreat will happen in July of 2027. That happens in a beautiful piece of land in northern New Mexico on the Vallecitos River in the Carson National Forest, about 2 hours north of Santa Fe. And that retreat has an emphasis on wisdom, and the wisdom dimension of nature practice, exploring impermanence, connection, selfless way experience unfolds, interdependent way experience dynamic of nature. Also, we'll explore inclusivity themes around ethics, and other sort of broader dimensions, and the ecological crisis, how this practice meets that. So the main skeleton of the training is these 4 in-person retreats. And as you asked about, Nancy, life happens. We get sick, family gets sick, we have to tend to some emergency. So occasionally people have to miss a week or part of a week. And so I video record everything, all the talks, all the meditations, all the discussions. And so the ask is that you review all the videos if you miss a portion of the in-person retreat. And then you team up with someone to do all the practices, all the practice teaching, the inquiries, etc. And then in between those retreats, there's a few things that happen. One is I give monthly, I or Laurie will give monthly webinars about different related themes related to nature meditation practice. They'll be online. You'll also be assigned a pod, a small group of 4 to 5 people, usually in your geographic area, where you meet with once, twice a month. And these are ways to both have a smaller connection with a small group of people and also to check in. How are you doing? How are you doing in the training? There's also a chance to practice teach, because I believe that the more you practice, the more you get comfortable with it. So at the beginning of those meetings, someone will guide a meditation. At the end of those meetings, someone will guide a meditation. There'll be book assignments. You'll get a couple of book assignments in between those retreats, nature-based books. And so you're encouraged to read those. And then the pod meeting, you're also encouraged to discuss the book readings. And then the other thing that happens between retreats is some assignments. But the assignments are quite light. The first assignment after the first retreat is an essay about exploring your own relationship to nature and meditation practice. After the second retreat, you'll be submitting a 15-minute video of you guiding in nature meditation, which you would have done a lot on that second retreat. After the third retreat, as part of a key part of the course is you have to do a practicum, which is teach a day retreat or 2 half-day retreats to meditation in wherever you live, and then record a couple of meditations and some introductions of some practices. And those assignments for the essay or the videos, you'll be paired up with a mentor. A mentor is a graduate from the previous trainings. So the person's walked through the course, has some experience. And it's also when you upload your material, those assignments, they will review them. They'll meet with you. They'll check in with you. They'll give you some reflections about your material. And so the idea is these different ways of creating container. There's the retreats, there's the pods, there's the mentor. And that's the sort of the primary sort of framework for the retreat. Let me just see if I've covered everything. I think I've covered most of it. So yeah, and so at the end of all that, you will be confident to some degree in finding your own voice, finding your own way with teaching meditation, with structuring a half day or a day-long retreat, being able to navigate the logistics and some of the group dynamics, and then go on to teach classes, half days, days. Some people go on to teach weekends. There's a further training that people can do. I probably will be offering that training in 27 or maybe 28. I've developed a 6-week program, which I'm in the middle of getting researched, called Mindfulness-Based Nature Connection. And that allows you to teach this work in a 6-week format. I've already had it researched once, but I'm getting it researched at UCSF next year, which will make it a really powerful program, because having evidence-based programs is a big deal when you're trying to teach in organizations. And then once you graduate, you will join the Awaken the Wild alumni community. As I said, there's about 100 plus graduates. I'd say actively, there's probably about 50, 60 graduates, all of whom are teaching in various different capacities. And either, some of them integrate it into their work, into their coaching, their therapy, their medical practice, their mental health practice, or in their school district, or, any number of ways. And you may or may not know, I've also the last couple of years started a nonprofit called Mindful of Nature, and that nonprofit, I fundraise for that, and um, like we just went through a pilot phase, and we had 8 to 10 teachers roll out and nature meditation programs within organizations, healthcare, first responders, youth, seniors, and other communities. And so that's one way that you can uh, find work post course. Another is, as you might know, the awakenthewild.com site. We offer various programs. We offer the daily nature meditation sit in the morning. We offer Sunday afternoon programs and other day longs and half days. And so once you graduate and certify, you're willing to able to teach in those forums. So that's roughly the lay of the land. The cost is, I believe it's 6,900. There's a current early bird rate right now that brings it down to 6,400. And then the retreats I try to find very, very low cost places to keep the cost down. So um, depending on exactly where we do those retreats, one or two of them have buildings, rooms, and other two have just camping. Some people bring their camper vans. And the cost of those retreats usually are in the sort of 350 to 500 range, something like that. And then travel obviously on top of that. But that would be the only other cost. And so that's the rough lay of the land.